If you're an ecom founder between $1 and $3 million a month, then you probably look something like this guy. And the reason is because you're currently an over leveraged founder, but that's not a problem. In today's video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can break the $1 to $3 million a month plateau and scale to $5 million a month or more. You see, I audit ecom brands all the time, above $1 million a month. And I see consistently one bottleneck that holds almost 99% of the businesses I audit back. If you want to know what that bottleneck is, I'm going to tell you right now. It is simply the founder. But how does the founder become the biggest bottleneck in a brand doing between $1 and $3 million a month? Well, it's simply when the founder becomes over leveraged. And the founder, more times than not, is unknowingly over leveraged. You see, what happens is the founder generally acts as the head of branding creative, the head of operations, the head of growth, and sometimes even the manager for different departments, even at this scale. See, what usually happens is because the business is their baby, they find it very hard to let go of control. And even more importantly, they lack the hiring systems to be able to place the right leadership where they need that can actually do a better job than they can. And because they can't find the right people, they end up taking the burden of the business's day-to-day operations onto their shoulders, which causes them to be stressed, to be burnt out, and worst of all, it caps the business at a certain ceiling. The reason it caps the business at a ceiling is because it is literally capacitated by the time of the founder. One person limits the growth of the entire business because unknowingly they undermine the entire system. You see, what we also see is ecom brands at this level are bolting on external agencies to help them with growth. So they usually have an agency for creative and also for performance marketing. And as a side note, these agencies cost them 100% more than they actually should do. You see, if you were to bring this team in-house, it would probably cost you around 10,000 US per month. And if you were to bring this team in-house, it would probably cost you around 5,000 US per month. So already the 30,000 plus that you're paying agencies is literally 100% more expensive than having this in-house. But that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem with that is that these agencies own the process. So if their prices were to go up, or if their prices were to go up and you didn't like it, you didn't want to stay, or they were to drop you, or they went bust, all the knowledge that they have, all that growth that you were outsourcing is gone. And here's what agencies do when that happens. They hire another agency. They bring in another agency and they get themselves caught in the same mousetrap, reliant on external agencies for their own growth. And this happens all because of the founder, because the founder simply doesn't have the time or the resources to hire the people he needs for each of these positions so that he can finally get rid of the agencies once and for all. Now you might be saying, well, Jack, having an agency is not that bad. They do a great job. I'm going to tell you why it's probably the most damaging thing that you could do for your business and why it's keeping you stuck. You see, when you outsource your growth, you are literally handing over the responsibility for growing your brand to somebody else. You do not own it. And more importantly, when you come to sell the brand, it has no enterprise value because when those agencies walk, so do the very systems that got you to this level. See, what you've really done is bolted different entities together to drive a lot of revenue, which is great. But you as the founder, in the middle of all of that, are holding everything together with sheer will. And as a result of that, the pressure sits on top of the founder. It burdens them day to day. So what you find is you're making a shitload of money, but you're stressed. You have no time to do other things with your life. The weight of the business becomes too much. And either two things happen, right? The founder finally has to take a break, take a step back, and this revenue drops. Or they burn out completely. They try and sell the brand. they take a couple of $100,000 for it, because the only person that wants to buy this brand is another brand operator. Somebody that is willing to take on the burden of this brand and scale it into this system right here. And you see, this system is the system that scales brands to $5 million a month or more. And the only difference is the structure in which it operates. So you see at the top, we have the founder, and the founder has three main focuses: acquisition, innovation, and key hiring. Everything else is delegated. And the first key hire that they need to make in order to allow that delegation to take place is an executive layer, either a growth director or a brand director. Now, this person literally acts as a buffer to stop all the problems within the business rising the chain of command and landing on the founder's desk and disrupting his peace. So what happens is now these problems are absorbed by your growth director or your brand director. Those problems filter up the chain of command through your head of departments, and your head of departments will coordinate with the managers of each of the different areas of the business. Now, the difference with this structure is you now own the operations. So instead of outsourcing these processes to agencies, you now own the creative engine. You now own the operational management. You now own the performance marketing. And why that's so important is because when you finally own the system, you can develop it. You see, when you're outsourcing to an agency, there is no iteration process. There is no improvement to the system that they own because they own it. And the only way to scale a business is to systemize the processes. And more importantly, is to not undermine the system itself. Because a founder in this position, when shit hits the fan, will bypass the very system that they created and take over control and do the job themselves. And they'll do the job themselves because they're the only person that can do it, right? They don't trust anybody else to do it, and that job needs doing to maintain the revenue. So they're actually undermining the system because they don't have the right structure in place, which means that that system alone cannot grow, it cannot improve, it cannot be optimized. And the problem is that you cannot scale a system that can't be optimized, because when the founder takes control and undermines the system never learns. You see, I met with a $60 million a year brand, and they had one key rule, which was that their leadership is not to do any of the tasks. No matter how big the problems, no matter how much pressure is on, their focus was to basically improve the system so that next time the problem came around, the system could handle it instead of a person stepping in and taking over. Because here's the thing, right? People are replaceable, but systems aren't. So when you've got a person that takes over the system every single time, the system doesn't improve, and that person is basically not giving it a chance to get any better. So when we've built a structure like this, we can improve the systems of each area of the business. They can be independent for their own function, and they can be optimized and worked on so that when the pressure grows, the system can handle it. Instead of the pressure relying on people who could leave at any minute or fall sick, that are unreliable and can fail easily, the pressure falls on the system. And the scale of a business, the efficiency of a business falls to the standard of its systems, not its people. So when we restructure the business like this, what then happens is we've actually created a self-containing system that can grow independently from the founder. If the founder wants to go and take 2 weeks off, he can do. He can step away from the business, and he has everything in place to allow it to keep on growing and scaling without him. So then he has a choice. He can either go and just take the time off, print cash without any dependency on him, or he can go build another brand. And he can replicate that same structure, that same system in a new market with a new product. And then he can do it again. And he could do it again. He could do whatever he wants with that time because of the very fact that he's not the bottleneck anymore. So he can work on his businesses instead of being stuck inside of them. And do you know what that does? That creates enterprise value, because you can scale revenue without the founder. So anybody that wants to come in and buy one of these brands isn't buying something that they have to operate. They're buying something that sustains itself, that can grow on its own, that just requires direction. And this is how we scale to $100 million a year. Because what we do is we build a holding company, potentially in Dubai, under a free zone where you pay zero tax. And that holding company owns the centralized shared services: finance, hiring, ops, data, legal, marketing. Those shared services then fulfill each one of the brands that they have. So now, instead of trying to scale one brand to $100 million, you could scale 3 to 30 million, or you could scale 5 to 20 million, or 10 to 10 million. It doesn't matter. You build a horizontal scale, which actually reduces risk. Because let's say a ingredient that you were using for one of your products now gets banned by the FDA and that product doesn't sell anymore, right? You lose a brand overnight. Let's say that something else drastic happens, right, and you lose the brand. If you scaled horizontally, your eggs are in multiple baskets, and therefore if one of these brands goes under, you've still got the rest. So you're actually creating security as well with this system. And most importantly, somebody looking at this umbrella-like company where there is centralized operations that now literally own the brands, they want to buy it. So if you're a founder and you are stuck in the day-to-day operations and you cannot scale because you've at a ceiling, then most likely you are the biggest bottleneck for that business. If you'd like to learn how we help install the systems for our clients to allow them to scale to $5 million plus and remove the founder as the bottleneck, click the link at the bottom of this video to my Instagram page, check out some of the resources, and if it makes sense, we can book in a call to discuss more.